the 30th of June 2014, Lars Mittank flew with 3 friends and 2 school friends to Varna, a port city in Bulgaria, which is located on the Black Sea and borders the health resort Goldstrand to the north. But for some years now, the Golden Beach is less known as a health resort, but rather as a new Ballermann on the Balkans, which is why it is often the destination of so-called man's vacations. This was also the case with Lars, but this was his first vacation of this kind. Normally, he made and booked sport, fishing and diving vacations. But because his friends had already booked the vacation and still had a place available, because the friend who actually wanted to come along didn't get a vacation, Lars decided to take part, because he was on vacation. Sandra Mittank also wrote the following in her email to me. I, as a mother, was very surprised about this kind of vacation, because Lars didn't tell me about it. Lars worked in Wilhelmshaven in a coal-fired power plant ever since he completed his advanced training as a power plant operator. Wilhelmshaven is about 150 kilometers from his hometown Mana, where his family still lives. He loved his job and loved his soccer club Werder Bremen since childhood, which will later be a factor in his story. Because his father suffered a stroke in 2012, which made him dependent on support, Lars always commuted home when he had time off, to be there for his parents and to relieve them of work. He also enjoyed seeing his friends and former soccer mates. A vacation came just in time, a chance to leave his stress behind for at least a while and recharge his batteries. So the 6 flew to Varna on June 30th, 2014 and stayed at the 4-star all-inclusive hotel Viva. During the time of the vacations was the Soccer World Cup and the temperatures were around 40 degrees at noon. Unlike others who spent their time in the hotel room, at the pool, eating and partying in the evening, Lars played soccer on the beach with high school graduates. They later described him as a nice and sociable guy. Nothing unusual or worth mentioning happened in the beginning. The only thing that the friends noticed was that Lars wasn't eating much. Many documentaries and amateur detectives pay a lot of attention to this detail and try to derive their theories from this fact. But you have to remember that it was 40 degrees. Temperatures at which one often simply has no appetite. Besides only little or nothing is talked about, he still ate soups, salad and fruit. According to a fruit vendor on the beach, Lars often bought fresh fruit from him. He immediately recognized him when he was shown a picture of him, because he remembered Lars in a very friendly way. So probably also on July 3rd, when they went to the mystery Golden Sands bar to watch the quarterfinals between Costa Rica and the Netherlands. The game started at 11 p.m. The bar was decorated in a Soccer World Cup style, and on every table were flags of the home country of the visitors. Lars wore a Werder Bremen jersey that evening, and after having a few drinks, took the opportunity to exchange the different flags with each other. Actually, everyone understood the fun, except for a group of Bavarian fans graduating from high school who did not take it lightly and got upset and started an argument, but which could be eliminated in the end. Maybe they also felt offended by the Werder Bremen jersey of Lars, or felt called upon to do something about his behavior. But the evening seemed to have been good, because they were the last to leave the bar around 4 a.m. On the way to the hotel, Tim and Paul wanted to make a detour to McDonald's, which was not far from the bar. Since Lars generally didn't like McDonald's anymore and was on a healthy diet and was doing a lot of sports, he said that he didn't want to eat anything and would go to the hotel. The hotel was about 1 kilometer away from there. On the way, he was beaten by Russians or Bulgarians, according to his own statements. He later suspected that they were hired by the Bavarian fans, because they said to him in the bar in the evening that in Bulgaria, it is easy to hire someone to beat someone for little money. He was not injured very much, but he received a hard blow on his left ear, which later turned out to be a torn eardrum. When Lars woke up the next day, he called his girlfriend and told her about the incident and his aging ear. She asked him several times to go to a doctor and check out the injury and pain that came with it, but Lars guessed that no doctor was open on weekends. At the same time, he hoped that the condition of his ear was going to improve quickly. That same evening, they all went out to celebrate together, but the next 2 days, they relaxed more and ended the vacation. On Monday, July the 7th, they had to check out of the hotel at 12 noon. Lars was still in pain and thought about the consequences of flying when his ear was injured. After all, a good ear is important for his job as a power plant worker, which is why his employer also had all employees regularly examined to ensure quality and safety. And since Lars loved his job, he didn't want to jeopardize it and decided to take a cab with a friend to a general practitioner to have his ear examined. The doctor diagnosed a ruptured eardrum and forbade him to fly and gave him a referral to St. Anna Hospital in Varna. The document is available. But before he went to the hospital, they went back to the hotel and talked about how to proceed. After consultation with the other 5, Lars decided and insisted that they should fly without him and leave him behind, since he had a foreign travel insurance that would transport him home. The shuttle picked up the 5 from the hotel and drove them to the airport. Lars took the same cab that was in front of the hotel to St. Anna Hospital in Varna. Around 20:40 p.m., Lars entered the consulting room of the ENT specialist and was examined. According to Lars, the doctor mocked him, a word that Lars hardly ever uses, and which had a huge weight with his mother. The ENT specialist did not want to understand Lars and did not want to talk to him in English. He refused any communication. That's why he was not admitted, but still had to pay a bill of 120 lira, about 60 euros. Lars still got a prescription for the antibiotic Cefzil 500. At 21:41, the same cab takes him to the first pharmacy. But because the prescription stipulated 20 tablets, and the pharmacy only had packs of 10 tablets on site, he had to drive to a second pharmacy. That was around 5 after 10 at night. There he got the Cefzil 500. And then he got back into the cab and told the driver to take him to a cheap hotel. Because it was summertime, every respectable hotel was already full booked, which was another reason why the cab driver drove him to the Hotel Color. Maybe the cab driver had some kind of contract with the Hotel Color, which promised him a commission if he brought tourists to this hotel. The latter is of course pure speculation, but could be an explanation. At 10 after 10 at night, he arrived at Hotel Color. It was located in a side street, a remote area. Lars gets out, and because he was thirsty, he thought about going to the open store that was right in front of him. But because several shady men were standing around, he decided not to go. So he gave the cab driver his money and a generous tip and thanked him warmly for his help. This last statement were the words of the cab driver, although it should be noted here that later on he could not be reached by Sandra Mittanks for her research. He then checked into the hotel and paid by credit card. Lars later told his mother that the young man behind the counter copied it. He went to his room. Later, he went to the hotel bar to get some water to drink and washed down the Cefzil. At 11 p.m., he called his mother for the first time from the hotel and asked her to charge his cell phone with money. Sandra Mittank followed his request and charged it. It should be noted that the cell phone he had with him was not a smartphone, but an old cell phone whose battery quickly ran out. He wanted to enjoy the vacation to the fullest and left his new smartphone at home. This is what Sandra Mittank wrote about this episode. He was troubled. He said he had an argument with football fans, was hit in the ear, and said that the hospital doctor mocked him and sent him away laughing. He also asked me to call his Verein health insurance because he wanted to be brought home with patient transport. We hung up and I registered the case with the Verein health insurance and got the file number. After Sandra called the health insurance company, she called her son again and told him. Lars then said that there was something wrong with the hotel, that he had to leave and that Sandra should cancel his credit card, because the hotel had copied it at the check-in, and he felt strange about this because he had never experienced such a procedure in any other hotel before. When he's back home, he can unblock it again, he told his mother. To clarify this, Sandra called a member of the bank staff. They told her that you cannot unlock the card yourself. Then she called Lars again and told him what the employee had told her. Nevertheless, he insisted and added that he still had enough cash. Sandra Mittank blocked the card. In the email to me, she also added the following. My feeling told me that I had to book a bus connection if he was not allowed to fly the next day. So I picked out a bus connection, booked and paid. The bus was to leave at 30:11 at night on the 8th of June from the Varna bus station. So even if Lars wasn't allowed to fly, he would have had the security to have a bus ticket. Sandra asked Lars to go to sleep and get some strength, as the next few days will be exhausting. But a short time later, he calls her again. Something is wrong with the hotel. He didn't say exactly what, but Sandra thinks that he felt bugged and therefore couldn't talk out loud. Investigations by private detectives and Sandra later revealed that the hotel was very sensitive and you could hear everything from the hallway and its room makers. Their assumption is that Lars overheard something disturbing or felt that someone heard what he said about the hotel. At the end of the call, he said, I have to get out of here. Between 2:30 and 3:30 a.m., he called Sandra one more time and told her that he was out of the hotel and was being followed by 4 men. He spoke softly because he was hiding from them, and according to his own statements, quote, was high up and could fall down. Shortly thereafter, he hung up. 8th of July, 3:06. SMS from Lars. Ziel 500. What is that? 3:15. Ziel 500. What is this? Because Sandra Mittank still assumed that he was hiding, she did not call him, but booked the flight instead. The flight was scheduled to leave Varna Airport at 4:20 and land in Hamburg at 9:45. To better understand the course of the events, Sandra and the investigators walked the path he probably took at the same time at night. And in their estimation, it could be that the 4 men who were chasing him were trying to rob him because he was carrying an Adidas bag. And could be easily recognized by his yellow t-shirt in the dark. Sandra lay awake all night and waiting for the news from Lars. At some point in the night, Lars was seen waving heavily at the side of the road by a cab driver. The driver already had a woman in the cab, but he took Lars with him and dropped him off at Varna Airport at 5 a.m. The cab driver and the woman in the cab reported afterwards that Lars' pupils were dilated. The possible causes are unknown. There are different theories, but all are purely speculative. It could be related to the head or ear injury, or could be a side effect of the drug Ziel 500. Or simply he was tense and full of adrenaline from the events. Shortly after he arrived at the airport, he called his mother and told her that he was glad to be there, and told her how he got there. At that time his cell phone was almost flat and the conversations with his mother were down to essentials, in short, concise sentences. He told her that he needed money and that Sandra should transfer money to him via Western Union. Both of them did not know about Western Union until now, but Lars told her that he met a man from Bavaria at the airport to explain Western Union and the process of how to get cash through it. The man was no longer standing next to him, and yet Lars was able to tell Sandra clearly what he had told him and how Western Union works. So she understood the system even though she had never heard of it before. From this, private investigators and Sandra conclude that Lars was still clearly in his right mind and not confused, as many internet detectives often assume. After Western Union's explanation, Sandra gave him the details of his flight and bus tickets and told him to copy them by hand in case his cell phone went dead. She wanted to give him the Western Union reference number after the visit to the doctor, because she had not yet made a referral at that time. She only did this after the conversation. Lars did not tell her how much money he needed, so she set a sum, which was rather randomly chosen, of 500 euros. Here it is often speculated that the sum of 500 euros would be too specific if Lars had requested it, and possibly indicated blackmail. But with the above-mentioned fact, speculation in such a direction is unnecessary. Sandra told her son to go to the airport doctor and clarify whether he could fly or not. But before he went to the doctor, he said, quote, "They won't let me fly nor drive." Lars said that he looked dirty from the hiding place. Sandra replied that he should freshen up in the bathroom and call back as soon as he got more information from the doctor. Sandra also encouraged him and said that his ear couldn't be too bad. Otherwise, the other doctor wouldn't have sent him away. Shortly after the conversation, and after Sandra Mittank had completed the Western Union reference, she called him again. She only heard a murmur, so she assumed that he accidentally took the call and was just freshening up in the bathroom. This was the last call Lars took. She tried again later, but Lars did not pick up the phone. While Sandra Mittank became more and more nervous and restless, because this behavior was untypical for Lars, Lars made his way to the doctor's office. At 9 a.m., he enters the doctor's office. The interview and/or examination lasted 42 minutes. Dr. Kostov took all the necessary information from the passport, looked in his ear, administered eardrops, took a temperature of 37.2 degrees, normal, no fever, and wanted to give him tablets, but Lars refused, probably because of his bad experience with the Tefzil 500. The doctor explained to Lars that he could fly, because it is not that bad, but he had to sign a waiver before he could fly. So he gave it to him, and Lars signed it. Lars probably got restless and requested to go to the toilet and left the room and murmur that he would come right back and disappear. The doctor waited until he learned that Lars had left the airport area. That just now was the reconstruction of the events according to the documents and the calls of Sandra Mittank with Mrs. Mitrova. In contradiction, Dr. Kostov describes the situation as follows. So it was, at least according to the statements of the airport doctor, already a stressful situation for Lars. When suddenly a man in an airport uniform entered the consulting room, Lars panicked, jumped up and ran off. However, it must be mentioned here that Dr. Kostov changed his statement 3 times in the course of the investigation. Initially, he said that this ominous employee who entered the consulting room was an employee of the airline Lars was supposed to fly with at 4:20 p.m. and who was looking for Lars. However, it was only 9 a.m. Why would someone look for Lars so long before the flight, especially when his mother had booked the flight only a few hours before? Afterwards, he said that the person who came in was an employee of the airport. But why would an employee simply enter the doctor's office? And his last version was that he did not know the person who came in. Many contradictions, but these were brought to a head when Germany's lead investigator flew to the airport and wanted to question those responsible there. He was introduced to a man who was said to have been the ominous employee. Investigations by private detectives found out the identity of the man and checked the reliability of this, and it turned out that the person who was presented to the German investigator was not even in Bulgaria when Lars entered the consulting room. Furthermore, the doctor's statements cannot be verified because there are no cameras in the airport that cover the entrance to the consulting room. In other words, a blind spot. Sandra Mittank called various numbers to get help while Lars was in the consulting room and ran away. But, quote, nobody wanted and could understand her. At 11 a.m., she called the honorary consul in Varna and was connected with Mrs. Mitrova. Sandra told her what happened, that her son sounded worried and that she urgently needed help. An hour later at 12 a.m., Mrs. Mitrova called Sandra back and told her that Lars had been to the doctor, was looking relatively normal but was acting restlessly, and had asked the doctor to let him go to the toilet, but then did not come back. The doctor thought that he was coming back to pick up his things, but later on she told Sandra that Lars just ran out, disappeared from the airport and left his travel bag, ID, backpack and cell phone behind. Another point where the doctor's statements do not seem conclusive. On July 9th, a missing persons report was filed in Germany, and at the same time the coal-fired power plant where Lars worked commissioned a private detective and a Bulgarian lawyer who was born in Varna. The master craftsman, Frank, from the power plant was on vacation in Bulgaria with his Bulgarian wife. They learned about Lars and immediately went to Varna airport on the 10th of June 2014. They got no information about his disappearance. On July 17th, the private detective Andreas Gütig starts work in Varna. On July 24th, Sandra Mittank travels to Varna. And on July 27th, Sandra, Frank and the Bulgarian lawyer drove to the airport. At the airport, Sandra was shown the security camera footage. Sandra wrote the following: "I am not crying, even though this is the last time I saw Lars. I am relieved. My feelings tell me that my son knows what he is doing. He is getting himself to safety." After Sandra was shown the video of Lars running out of the airport, she asked the people in charge on site if they can show her the footage of Lars arriving at the airport. The video is not available right now, they told her. I have received all the videos that were given to Sandra for this documentary, and I will play them on the site. But what is important to know is that the video of what Sandra saw at the airport on July 27th, 2014, shows video scenes that were not sent to the police 7 months later. This means that Sandra saw different scenes than the ones we see here. She describes the scene she saw on July 27th as follows. Lars sprints out the airport door, stops abruptly, grabs his back pocket, wallet there, passport, orients himself right, left. On the right is Varna, that's where he was beaten. So to the left, there he sees at the same heat, about 20 meters away, 2 police cars with uniforms. On the bus stop and behind them a big heap of sand and from the last renovation of the airport, parking lot, behind it a field, then the highway and behind it low forest field vegetation, and then in the back mountains with some houses on the slopes. He decides, walks slowly to the police cars to 5 meters in front of them, walks across the street at 11 o'clock and looks behind the bus, which was driving straight backwards, slowly out of the car. A screen follows him, is not to be seen, and when the bus drives forward, he runs towards the pile of sand, disappears behind it, and allegedly climbs over the 2.15 meter high fence into the field and disappears. So in the video shown to Sandra, Lars seems anything but confused. More like he has a precise plan and behaves inconspicuously, so that the policemen don't notice him. So the video we see only is a part of it and makes the actual facts and condition of Lars look different than he was in reality. And that's why you can now understand the sentence. I'm not crying, although I'm seeing Lars for the last time. I am relieved. My feelings tell me that my son knows what he is doing. He's getting himself to safety. Now better. On this statue, here you can see Lars bought himself something to eat. But why is there no video of it? Why is there no video of his arrival at the airport and how Lars was going to the toilet? So few recordings, although there should obviously be a lot more material, even if there's a blind spot at the doctor's office. What does this mean? After Sandra Mittank was shown Lars' video, she was handed the contents of her son's Adidas travel bag. It was written in Bulgarian, But Mrs. Mittank herself speaks Russian, which is very similar to Bulgarian, so she discovered the Cefzil 500 on the list. It was listed twice, once with 10 tablets and once with 7 tablets. She pointed this out to the lawyer, because the question that arose was, how many tablets of the Cefzil did Lars take? The lawyer confirms that he has seen it, so it can be assumed that Lars took 3 tablets of Cefzil 500. The list included everyday things like clothes, but also other medicines with the corresponding number of tablets and tablet packages. Lars had taken some tablets from Germany to have a travel first aid kit with him, although Sandra was not handed over the list, but the travel bag. They left the airport and went directly to the police to file a missing persons report. This took about 4 hours. When Sandra later arrived at the hotel, she searched the bag. She wrote the following. In the evening at the hotel, I checked the bag and found out that Lars was, as always, very tidy. He picked up all the recipes from the hotel, the pharmacy, and put them in the bag in a foil. On the basis of the recipes, which I have all sorted chronologically, one can follow the exact time of his vacation. The only thing missing was the Cefzil. The 2 bills of the Cefzil from the 2 pharmacies were also included. On the second invoice, the name of the drug was not listed, but the tablets were missing from the travel bag, even though they were on the list. So the next day, she went to the airport again with her lawyer and tried to get to the bottom of the matter. She asked the people in charge where the Cefzil was, since it was on the list but not in the bag. The man who had given them the list the day before was called in, and he brought them the list. However, it was another list without the Cefzil being listed. Sandra writes, I was appalled, the lawyer as well, who said that he could testify that the tablets were listed the day before. Shortly after that, it became horribly loud. I shouted loudly that they should stop and that I was no longer interested in these tablets. I just wanted to get out. The situation felt very uncomfortable and dicey. I just wanted to get out. I thought to myself, there's something wrong here. There's a lot of drama going on here. Sometime later, Sandra dismissed the lawyer because he was acting more and more strangely and was making strange comments about Lars. Any suspicion she made, he denied and doubted. At some point, he told her to stop looking for her son. Some contacts of his advised him to stop. The blisters from the Cefzil did reappear later. Apparently, the Varna police took the drugs because they were hanging on Lars' file. But what remained was the bitter aftertaste and further questions arose. It looked like someone wanted to stop the search for Lars. But why? I know, it sounds almost like a conspiracy theory, but the factual situation speaks mostly for such a conspiracy. Why else would the video recordings be cropped? Why else would the lead investigator be presented with a man who was supposed to be the ominous man, but was not even in Bulgaria at the time? More details will be explained to you by private detective Rainer, who is still actively working for Sandra and has been to Bulgaria many times before. At the end of this section, I would like to give you some food for thought. The German Foreign Office published the following shortly after Lars' disappearance. Some German doctors also reported about complex and expensive false diagnoses, unnecessary treatments, in case of non-payment. They threatened to prevent him from leaving the country and to confiscate his passport. If we remember Lars' statement that he said that they neither let him fly nor drive, we might be able to make a connection to this. And the statement seems to be given less due to confusion rather than a real concern. Lars' health condition. There are several theories about Lars' health condition, but before we go into these, we should briefly clarify what the antibiotic Cefzil 500 is about. First of all, Cefzil is an antibiotic with the active substance cefprozil, which is prescribed more often in Bulgaria, but not in Germany, because it is a strong antibiotic with comparatively many side effects. The question for Lars was, what is Cefzil 500? But for us, it is, what did the Cefzil 500 do to him? Were there any side effects or maybe even drug interactions? And if so, what were their effects? Did he panic? Did he develop a drug-induced psychosis and hallucinations? Some studies say that Cefzil may indeed have these side effects, although they are very unlikely to occur. Doctors in Bulgaria, of course, did not express any concerns when asked if they could think of Lars' behavior being caused by the drug. German doctors, on the other hand, said that Cefzil, or rather the active ingredient cefprozil, is questionable, especially in this dose. The pharmacist Rada Peshlivanova from the Bulgarian Pharmacists Association supported the statements of the German doctors by saying, quote, "There could be a connection between the antibiotic and the conspicuous behavior of the patient. However, we are talking about a very rare side effect, which depends on whether, for example, he has taken another drug or drank alcohol." So in Lars' case, the Cefzil 500 may have had an even stronger effect than it already had, and the likelihood of side effects has increased. So it could be that he hallucinated. And since a person who hallucinates or has a panic attack cannot distinguish feelings and fear from real fear, simply because the situation is subjectively real for him, Lars Mittank's behavior, if seen from his perspective, is understandable. Schizophrenia, undefinable mental illness. The critical age group of man is between 16 and 30 years of age. This means that the probability of developing schizophrenia is highest at this age. Of course, this does not apply to all men, but mostly to men who have a predisposition or are predestined to develop schizophrenia. Predisposition also refers to hereditary DNA. In my research, I could not find any indication that the Mittank family suffers or has suffered from mental illness, which is why I consider this aspect unlikely. Before I go any further, I would like to emphasize that this is of course only speculation, and it is always difficult to make a proper psychological assessment. I can only report from experiences of my immediate environment that it is possible to develop a mental illness due to a stressful life and other factors that favor this. So in this hypothetical example, he was already stressed and not in the best mental condition. Then his friends flew back to Germany, and he was alone in a foreign country. As if that was not enough, a chain of events followed that he had not expected and that caught him cold. He thought he would be hospitalized and transported back to Germany through his foreign health insurance. But as we know, this assumption also turned out to be wrong. Lars had to find a new hotel for whatever reason, and this was followed by a panic episode in which he thought he was being followed or was really being followed, which probably triggered fear in him that was equivalent to a fear of death. Perhaps this concatenation caused him to develop a mental illness, be it a psychosis or schizophrenia. Here's a short excerpt from the Wikipedia article on schizophrenia. In the acute stage of the disease, schizophrenic people experience a variety of characteristic disorders that affect almost all areas of inner experience and behavior, such as perception, thinking, feeling and emotions, the formation, psychomotor skills and drive. Often voices that are not really present are heard, so-called voice hearing. The delusion of being followed, spied on, or controlled can occur. Furthermore, the feeling of being controlled by others can develop, for example through thought withdrawal or thought inspiration. Persistent hallucinations of any sensory modality are possible. Also, social withdrawal, lack of drive, lack of motivation, emotional flattening, and joylessness are often observed. I don't want to speculate further here either, but what makes this theory of mental illness more likely is the first theory. So maybe it is a combination of both. However, it can be firmly assumed that Lars only took 3 to 4 tablets of the Cefzil. So the question of whether these could really have had such great effects must be asked. Nevertheless, the questions that were asked in the first theory remain unanswered. And the question of his whereabouts is still unanswered as well. Even in such a state, one often has clear moments, or at least knows where he comes from, partly remembers his past. So why is it that he didn't get in touch with anyone? Head injury, torn eardrum. The last probable theory is that Lars did not only suffer a broken eardrum, but also a served head injury by the blow on his ear, or rather on the head. Because depending on which areas of the brain are hit by such a blow, character changes, panic and other symptoms can occur, which are also served in a psychosis. Maybe Lars really did suffer from retrograde amnesia, which was triggered by an aneurysm occurring over and over again. Because the theory of the private investigator you are about to hear is that this aneurysm, when it swells, keeps pressing on the areas of the brain responsible for memory, which is why he forgot where he came from. But the private investigator will tell you more about this in a moment. It's probably nothing specific about all this, but rather a string of concatenations and circumstances. What exactly doesn't really matter. We only know that Lars is probably confused and doesn't know where he comes from anymore. He will be frightened and socially isolated and will have difficulty communicating. His mother says he has lost his basic trust in people and doesn't dare to ask people for help anymore, because he seems to have had many bad experiences and his trust has often been broken. No one could ask oneself the question, why is there still hope? Sightings of Lars Mittank. The Facebook page Findet Lars Mittank received more and more hints, also in form of pictures, and repeatedly they pointed out the different pictures publicly, just to say that the pictures were not those of Lars. But she never let herself to be defeated and turned every hint of resignation into energy and used her role as a contact point for all kinds of clues to identify the people in the pictures with the help of her network, or at least to talk to them. For 5 years, they were able to find 15 Germans all over Europe who simply disappeared without a trace, but were still alive and who could have come home with the snap of their fingers. The sad thing is that none of them wanted to go home. Each of them has voluntarily disappeared without a trace. Each of them wanted to leave their old life behind and live lonely on the streets of Europe. In 2016 there was another, but this time promising, clue which did not come from Bulgaria or Europe, but from Brazil. The man in the picture that was sent to Sandra showed great similarities with her son. She contacted the Brazilian police to get more information about the man. After impatient, hopeful days, she was disappointed once again. The man said he was Canadian. Also, the eye color and the blood type did not match Lars' own. But this sighting is the sighting that gives Sandra the most hope. Because a Canadian named Anton Pilipa left his hometown Scarborough 2012 after he was wanted to attempted robbery, and Anton Pilipa managed to survive 4 years without identity documents and a roof over his head, and without mastering the language of the different countries he traveled through. He traveled over 10,500 kilometers, barefoot, hitchhiking, secretly on the back of trucks, always suffering from schizophrenia. Anton Pilipa was picked up by his brother and reunited with his family. The mother thanked us very much, Sandra Mittank said to me. I've tried to put everything into this video, and this video is meant to be a summary of the case, so that the circumstances can be explained and shared as precisely as possible to get an overview over the case. The case of Lars is so mysterious and enigmatic that many conspiracy theories and speculations have arisen, even accusations against Sandra that she did too little. With this video and the questions that Sandra replied to me by email, we want to silence these accusations and speculations, so she will answer some questions that are hotly discussed in forums and videos. But before we get to that, let's start with the private detective's interview. If you want to help in the disappearance of Lars Mittank, like, comment and share this video. Thank you very much. Now, the interview. Uns zugeschaltet ist jetzt Rainer, einer der Privatdetektive, die noch aktiv für Sandra Mittank arbeiten. Erst einmal danke, dass du dir die Zeit hierfür nimmst. Hi Rainer.
Kein Problem.
Ich habe ein paar Fragen vorbereitet und ich selber möchte gar nicht viel reden, sondern einfach dir diese Fläche hier bieten, um einmal einige Fragen zu beantworten, die vielen Usern und Hobby- und Internetdetektiven auf dem Herzen liegen. Ja, ich würde sagen, da reden wir gar nicht groß drum herum, sondern fangen einfach mal direkt an. Welche Ermittlungen habt ihr unternommen?
Im Fall Lars Mittank haben wir meiner Meinung nach alles nur erdenkliche Mögliche unternommen. Wir haben das gesamte Gebiet um den Flughafen drumherum in alle Himmelsrichtungen weiträumig zu Fuß mit dem Flugzeug und mit einer Drohne mit Wärmebildkamera komplett abgesucht. Wir haben knapp über 100 Leute zusammengetrommelt, die ähnlich wie eine Hundertschaft bei der Polizei dieses Gelände Stück für Stück durchstreift haben, immer miteinander in Kontakt gestanden haben, um dann wirklich zu klären, ist da irgendwo im Waldgebiet auch eine selbstgebaute Hütte, eine Erdhöhle, wo man sich drin verkriechen kann und so weiter. Wir haben einen Hund dazu geholt, der Spuren des Menschen aufnimmt, und dieser hat an einer Jacke von Lars gerochen und hat daraufhin auch die Suche aufgenommen. Er hat auch Spuren gefunden, so wie man es dann deutet. Er hat dann seine Richtung angegeben, ist der Richtung auch gefolgt, aber diese Spur ist dort an einem gewissen Punkt einfach abgebrochen. Es wurden von uns Lautsprecherdurchsagen in diesem Waldgebiet ausgestrahlt. Wir haben auf, so blöd es klingt, eigene Art und Weise eine Soundanlage in ein Auto gebaut, haben uns Lautsprecher außen an das Auto angebracht und sind mit einer Durchsage von Sandra Mittank durch diesen Wald gefahren, über die Hauptstraßen, über die Schleichwege und haben sie dort nach Lars rufen lassen. Dass Lars doch bitte an die Straße kommen möchte, dass er einfach vielleicht auch, selbst wenn er sich nicht mehr erinnern kann, sich an diese Stimme zurückerinnert, dass ihm diese Stimme bekannt vorkommt oder dass ihm diese Stimme vielleicht sogar magnetisch anzieht und er ihr entgegenläuft. Das sind nur wenige Punkte, die wir gemacht haben. Und mittlerweile, muss ich auch ganz ehrlich sagen, fallen uns immer mehr neue Dinge ein, die wir machen, wo wir eine Idee kriegen, wo wir die Umsetzung planen und diese dann auch tatsächlich umsetzen. Selbst bei mir, der jetzt 6 Jahre in diesem Fall aktiv ist es so, dass ich Tag und Nacht, wenn ich am Arbeiten bin, wenn ich privat unterwegs bin, alle Eindrücke, die mir in den Kopf kommen, alle Ideen, die mir kommen, dann im Nachhinein mit Sandra bespreche und sie frage, was denkst du, ist das eine Möglichkeit, wie wir es machen könnten, wie wir einen Schritt weitergehen können. Ich halte mit Sandra wirklich täglich Kontakt, um auch wirklich zu gucken, dass es, wenn es Erneuerungen gibt oder wenn es neue Ansätze gibt, dass wir die auch sofort besprechen, ohne dass in irgendeiner Art und Weise viel Zeit vergeht, dass man direkt drauf eingeht und vielleicht auch innerhalb der nächsten 24 Stunden sofort tätig wird und diese Idee dann umsetzt.
Kannst du vielleicht nochmal genauer auch erzählen, wie das mit also du hattest im Vorgespräch erzählt, dass die Plakate, die ihr anfangs aufgehangen habt, in Warna selbst, dass die auch abgehangen wurden. Warum wurden die abgehangen?
Also die ersten Plakate, die jemals gedruckt wurden für die Suche nach Lars, ähnelten sehr den Sterbeanzeigen, die Bulgaren aufhängen, wenn jemand gestorben ist im Dorf. Daraufhin haben wir unsere Plakate abgeändert und angepasst und diese Anpassungen haben wir dann dort an Bäume gepinnt, an Laternen, an Häuser, wenn es möglich war. Und im Nachhinein wurden wir angesprochen von der Polizei und von der Stadt Warna, dass wir doch bitte diese Dinger sofort abhängen sollen, weil wir sonst eine Anzeige bekommen aufgrund der Umweltverschmutzung. Und dann konnten wir nur noch andere Wege suchen und durften nicht mehr öffentlich plakatieren und sind dann auf Geschichten gegangen wie Werbung in Taxen. Weil jedes Taxi in Bulgarien hat ein Tablet drin, worüber sie navigieren, worüber sie ihren Taxometer laufen lassen. Und dort sind wir dann beigegangen und haben dort Werbung geschaltet mit einem Flyer auf Bulgarisch für die Suche nach Lars. Wir haben alle TV-Sender, die in irgendeiner Art und Weise Interesse hatten, bedient. Wir haben jeden Fernsehsender, jeden Radiosender bedient. Wir sind selbst hingefahren, haben die angesprochen, wenn kein Interesse bestand, dann konnte man da nicht viel dran ändern. Wir haben jede Zeitung, die in irgendeiner Art und Weise mit reinkam, ebenso bedient, dass es wirklich so weit gestreut werden konnte, wie es nur ging. Aber wir haben auch da gemerkt, egal wie weit wir an die Stadt reingekommen sind oder egal wie fern wir da weggegangen sind, da gibt es immer noch Personen, die nie was von dem Fall von Lars gehört haben, weil die halt auch medial nicht erreichbar sind. Nicht über Fernsehen, nicht über Internet und nicht über Telefon. Also selbst über Smartphone-Geschichten ist es tatsächlich so, dass dort einige Leute nie was vom Fall Lars Mittank gehört haben. Und das passiert uns auch in Deutschland, wenn wir Leute in Deutschland ansprechen. Dass zum Beispiel auch noch eine Zeitung in Deutschland einen Bericht bringt. Es gibt immer noch Leute, die von dem Fall nie was gehört haben.
Kannst du vielleicht gerade auch in dem Zusammenhang einmal auf die Vorwürfe eingehen, dass Sandra Mittank nicht genug ermittelt haben soll in dem Fall, selber geholfen haben soll? Einfach, das haben wir ja im Vorhinein auch besprochen, dass wir einfach diese ganzen Vorwürfe auch mal zum Verstummen bringen. Also du warst ja dabei, du kannst ja bezeugen, dass Sandra da mehr als mitgeholfen hat.
Also Sandra Mittank war mit mir und genauso mit meinen Kollegen in der ganzen Zeit mehrfach zusammen in Bulgarien. Ab einem ganz bestimmten Punkt konnte sie aber nicht mehr in Bulgarien aktiv werden, weil wir sie auch einfach schützen müssen und mussten. Und deshalb haben wir uns dazu entschlossen, Sandra aus Bulgarien rauszuhalten. Aber aus der Ferne, per Internet, per Telefon, hat sie so viel geholfen, wie es nur ging. Und dass man ihr vorwirft, dass sie nicht genug getan hat, das kann ich überhaupt nicht verstehen.
Danke schon mal dafür. Also, dass die Vorwürfe haltlos sind, das sollte eigentlich jeder wissen, der sich genauer mit dem Fall beschäftigt. Aber einfach für die Leute, die es nicht verstehen wollen, einfach nochmal klipp und klar, wollte ich das nochmal abklären. Kannst du vielleicht auch gerade bezüglich der Ermittlungen nochmal darauf eingehen, inwiefern die bulgarische Polizei mit euch zusammengearbeitet hat?
Die bulgarische Polizei hat mit uns gar nicht gearbeitet. Also das muss ich ganz klar so sagen. Wir haben unsere eigenen Ermittlungen geführt und die Bulgaren haben für sich ihre eigenen Ermittlungen geführt. Läuft nicht so wie in Deutschland. In Deutschland ist es so, dass wenn ich Hinweise habe, dann gebe ich die an die Polizei weiter und die Polizei wird tätig. Manchmal mag man zwar sagen, es dauert eben bei der deutschen Polizei, aber in Bulgarien haben wir festgestellt, dass dort einfach gar nichts gemacht wird. In Bulgarien ist der Fall auch noch lange nicht geschlossen, weil in Bulgarien gibt es ein Gesetz, das besagt, ist eine Person vermisst und wird sie nicht lebend oder tot gefunden, muss dieser Fall offen bleiben. Und die Bulgaren sind an sich auch interessiert daran, dass diese ganze Sache aufgeklärt wird. Aber durch die begrenzten Mittel und auch durch die große Reichweite der Umgebung, wo er hätte sein können, hat die bulgarische Polizei einfach gar nichts gemacht. Also ich habe von einer aktiven Arbeit, außer dass der nette Herr am Schreibtisch gesessen hat und Sandra befragt hat, nichts mitbekommen, dass die in irgendeiner Art und Weise aktiv gesucht haben.
Dann würde ich sagen, machen wir einfach mal direkt einen größeren Schwenk. Ich hatte in der Doku auch den ominösen Mann, der ins Sprechzimmer des Arztes am Flughafen geplatzt sein soll, gesprochen und auch die 3 Versionen angesprochen. Was glaubst du denn, was es mit diesem ominösen Mann auf sich hat? Kannst du da vielleicht auch nochmal genauer was zu sagen? Also ich hatte in der Doku auch erwähnt, dass der leitende Ermittler nach Bulgarien kam und ihm einfach ein Mann vorgesetzt wurde.
Der Arzt, der dort Lars untersucht hat am Flughafen, hat in mehreren Befragungen verschiedene Aussagen getroffen, dass dort jemand reingekommen sein soll, der Lars in Anführungsstrichen wohl aufgeschreckt hat. Also er hat nur die Tür geöffnet oder soll die Tür geöffnet haben, kurz reingeguckt haben was auf Bulgarisch gesagt haben, die Tür wieder zu und dann wäre die Sache erledigt gewesen. Und wenig später ist Lars dann wohl losgerannt. Diese Aussage des Arztes können wir nicht belegen, da diese Aufnahmen, wo man eigentlich hätte sehen können, dass dort jemand ins Zimmer geht, vom Flughafen beziehungsweise den Flughafenbetreibern, vom Sicherheitsdienst des Flughafens gelöscht wurde. Selbst wenige Tage später, als Sandra sich die Aufnahmen angeguckt hat, waren diese Aufnahmen schon gelöscht. Der bulgarischen Polizei, genauso wie der deutschen Polizei, wurde nur Material gegeben, wo Lars kurz drauf zu sehen ist. Also er läuft ins Bild, er läuft aus dem Bild raus und so weiter. Wir wissen aber, Lars ist schon weit vorher am Flughafen gewesen. Lars hat sich am Flughafen was zu essen gekauft. Lars hat sich am Flughafen das Gesicht gewaschen und hat sich frisch gemacht. Davon hätten überall Aufnahmen existieren müssen. Diese Aufnahmen sind aber weg. Und dass der Arzt wirklich die Wahrheit spricht, dass dort jemand ins Zimmer gekommen ist, das kann ich nicht bestätigen. Und es basiert nur auf den Aussagen dieses Arztes. Und wie viel ich dem Arzt Glauben schenke, kann man sich an 3 Fingern abzählen, nämlich gar nicht.
Ja, gerade auch das Dokument, was jetzt in der Dokumentation noch mit veröffentlicht wurde und auch der Anruf von Frau Mitrova, die sprechen ja auch für die unschlüssigen Aussagen des Arztes, um das einfach mal so zu sagen.
Genau, also dieses Dokument, was dort jetzt mit reingenommen wird, in deine Dokumentation besagt, dass Lars eingewilligt hat, auf eigene Verantwortung ins Flugzeug zu steigen und zu fliegen. Genauso haben wir ein Dokument, wo es heißt, dass Lars untersucht wurde, wie viel Fieber er hat und so weiter. Also ein Untersuchungsdokument, sage ich jetzt mal. Da hat Lars sogar versucht, darauf zu unterschreiben, aber es wurde kurz vorher abgebrochen, weil der Arzt unterschreiben musste. Und der Arzt hat Lars eine Rechnung ausgestellt von 100 Lever, die er dort bezahlen musste. Also diese Dokumente liegen uns dank der Polizei und auch dank der ganzen Situation liegen uns die vor. Auch der Werdegang von Lars im Urlaub, nachdem er geschlagen wurde und so weiter, können wir klar nachvollziehen. Wir haben die Belege der Apotheken, wir haben den Beleg vom Hotel und so weiter. Also der Weg von Lars ist zu 100% aufgebaut und rekonstruiert. Wir wissen auch, dass er, nachdem er aus dem Hotel raus ist, in die falsche Richtung gelaufen ist, weil er in der falschen Richtung aufgegriffen wurde.
Ja, kannst du vielleicht auch nochmal genau, wenn wir jetzt schon vom Hotel sprechen, nochmal genau auf die Episode im Hotel eingehen, warum Lars da hellhörig wurde und gedacht hat, abgehört zu werden? Du warst ja auch vor Ort.
Also zu dem Hotel muss man ganz klar sagen, ich persönlich, auch wenn ich schon in vielen schlimmen Hotels geschlafen habe, ich würde in diesem Hotel nicht freiwillig schlafen wollen. Man kommt in dieses Hotel rein und es ist einfach meiner Meinung nach sehr ungemütlich. Und dann kommt noch hinzu, dass man dort auch klar als Tourist zu erkennen ist in dieser Region. Denn in dieser Region, man braucht die Straße nur hochlaufen vom Hotel weg auf die nächste Hauptstraße, kommt man auf der einen Seite in ein großes Gypsy-Zigeunerviertel. Das sind wenige 100 Meter. Und auf der anderen Seite kommt man zu 4 oder 6 riesengroßen Mehrfamilienhäusern, wo Tag und Nacht immer irgendjemand unterwegs ist. Wo man wirklich Tag und Nacht jemanden antreffen kann, weil teilweise die Läden dort auch Tag und Nacht aufhaben. Das Hotel an sich habe ich insoweit kontrolliert, dass ich wirklich reingegangen bin und unter einem Vorwand mir die Zimmer dort angeschaut habe. Wir haben vorgegeben, wir möchten uns da einbuchen, weil wir unseren Flug nicht gekriegt haben, suchen ein billiges Hotel. Da wurde uns dann erzählt, ja, wir haben noch einige Zimmer frei. Bitte haben Schlüssel zum 3. Stock. Da können Sie sich mal ein Zimmer angucken. Da war es dann so, dass ich, dadurch, dass mein Kollege unten an der Bar gestanden hat und sich eine Cola bestellt hat, während der Wartezeit, ich selbst deren Gespräch im 3. Stock im Badezimmer und auch bei geöffneter Badezimmertür im Schlafzimmer hören konnte. Dieses Hotel ist so hellhörig, dass ich ihm theoretisch gesehen auch was hätte runterrufen können. Das hätte er gehört. Und ich habe alles gehört, was die beiden miteinander besprochen haben. Dementsprechend, das Hotel ist sehr, sehr hellhörig, meiner Meinung nach nicht sauber. Und das dann unter den Gesichtspunkten, dass Lars dort bezahlt hat und dann anschließend seine Kreditkarte kopiert wurde, mit einer Art Blaupause, da kann ich dann super nachvollziehen, dass Lars gesagt hat, Mama, sperre meine Kreditkarte. Ich habe hier betreffend meiner Kreditkarte ein komisches Gefühl. Sperre diese bitte.
Okay, ja, danke dir schon mal dafür. Damit das hier auch den zeitlichen Rahmen nicht sprengt, könntest du vielleicht was zum gesundheitlichen Zustand von Lars sagen? Was glaubst du? Also ich hatte in der Doku schon angeteasert, dass du eine bestimmte Theorie zu Lars Gesundheitszustand hast. Kannst du das vielleicht elaborieren? Also wie du dazu stehst, was deine Theorie ist?
Ich muss erstmal ganz klar sagen, solange wir Lars nicht tot gefunden haben, lebt er für mich und ich suche nach einem Lebenden. Das ist für mich ein ganz klarer Punkt, weil wenn ich nach einem Toten suche, habe ich zu einem gewissen Teil schon aufgegeben. Und das werde ich nicht zulassen, das möchte auch die Familie nicht. Und das muss man auch als Nicht-Angehöriger und auch als Beobachter der Seite einfach verstehen. Das machen, blödes Beispiel, auch Personen, die ihre Katze oder ihren Hund suchen. Die suchen auch nicht nach einem toten Hund oder nach einer toten Katze, die im Graben liegt, sondern die suchen aktiv nach einem lebenden Tier. So machen wir das auch. Wir suchen aktiv nach einer lebenden Person. Und wenn man dort in dem Fall dann auf den Toten stößt, dann ist es so. Dann ist es aber immer noch eine bessere Antwort und man hat dort dann halt auch eben die Gewissheit, man muss nicht mehr weitersuchen. Aber wir suchen aktiv nach einer lebenden Person. Und das wird auch so bleiben. Egal wie viele Leute sich dagegen stellen wollen, oder wie viele Leute im Nachhinein sagen, ja, sucht doch lieber nach einem Toten oder hört auf zu suchen, weil diese Vorwürfe kommen auch. Das wollen wir nicht und das werden wir auch nicht tun. Und das werde ich als Ermittler auch nicht tun. Betreffend der Gesundheit von Lars bin ich klar der Meinung, dass er das Urvertrauen in den Menschen verloren hat, weil ihm das am Goldstrand passiert ist und dadurch und in Kombination mit den Tabletten, die nachweislich Halluzinationen auslösen sollen, in einer retrograden Amnesie gefallen sein kann. Das heißt, er kann vergessen haben, er heißt Lars, wo er herkommt und so weiter, hat aber immer noch die Fertigkeiten, sprich, er kann, was seinem Beruf typisch ist, er kann schweißen, er weiß, wo welches Kabel hingehört und solche Geschichten. Also handwerkliche Fähigkeiten bleiben meistens erhalten, aber so personenbezogene Geschichten verschwinden. Ich habe mit einigen Ärzten gesprochen, auch einem Facharzt aus der Charité in Berlin. Und dieser ist der Meinung, dass es tatsächlich durch diesen Schlag aufs Ohr zu einem Blutgerinnsel im Kopf gekommen sein kann, der eine retrograde Amnesie auslöst. In dem Fall, dass Lars sich dann in irgendeiner Art und Weise aufregt, dass er einen Adrenalinschub kriegt und so weiter, schwillt das Gehirn an, weil der Puls sich erhöht. Und dadurch wird die retrograde Amnesie immer wieder auf den Ursprung, sage ich jetzt mal, zurückgeführt. Dass der Körper dann gar keine Kraft hat, in dem Moment sich zu erholen, sondern er immer noch in diesem Tunnel drinsteckt. Es gibt irgendwann einen Auslöser, der ihn wieder aus diesem Tunnel rauskatapultiert. Aber da weiß man halt nicht, was ist der Auslöser. Es gibt den Fall eines Amerikaners, der hat mit 16 Jahren einen Unfall gehabt, hat dann alles vergessen, was er in den 16 Jahren zuvor erlebt hat und ist dann in sein komplett neues Leben gestartet. Er hat eine Frau, er hatte 2 Kinder, hat alles super gehabt und 51 Jahre später hatte er einen Autounfall und dieser Autounfall hat diese Bremse oder diese Sperre im Kopf gelöst. Und plötzlich konnte er sich nur noch an seine 16 Jahre erinnern und nicht mehr an das Leben, was er dann schon viel länger geführt hat. Der Rest war dann wieder ausgelöscht und man musste ihm das mühevoll wieder beibringen. Und da sind so die Punkte, wo dann jemand sagt, ja, aber das kann ja nicht ewig dauern. Solche Sachen können schon länger dauern, wenn es nicht diesen sogenannten Reizpunkt, diesen sogenannten Punkt gibt, was ihn dann wieder zurückschießen kann. Und letztendlich wissen wir nicht, was es ist und dementsprechend müssen wir hoffen, dass wir ihn vorher finden oder dass er tatsächlich diesen Reizpunkt kriegt und er dadurch dann wieder nach Hause findet.
Du sprichst den Punkt schon an. Finden. Was kannst du den Zuschauern denn mit auf den Weg geben? Also wo könnte er sich befinden? Wo sollten sie die Augen offen halten? Am besten natürlich überall. Einfach nochmal Worte zum Schluss hin.
Am besten kann jeder, der uns helfen möchte, die Augen aufhalten und seine Umgebung gut im Auge behalten. Sprich, wenn dort ein Obdachloser, Beispiel Düsseldorf, gesehen wird, der Lars sein könnte, dann macht bitte gute Fotos, merkt euch gut den Standort und sendet uns das. Wir wollen nicht jeden Obdachlosen oder jeden, der in irgendeiner Art und Weise lange Haare hat und Bart hat, gleich über einen Kamm scheren und sagen, das könnte Lars sein. Aber jeder, der uns nicht gemeldet wird, ist einer zu wenig. Jeder, der uns gemeldet wird, selbst wenn er noch so weit entfernt ist für uns ein Punkt, wo wir sagen können, das ist nicht Lars. So viele, die obdachlos sind, die aufgrund der Haarfarbe und aufgrund des Bartwuchses und des Haarwuchses der Beschreibung von Lars entsprechen könnten. Weil ein Bart verbirgt sehr, sehr viel vom eigentlichen Gesicht. Lange Haare verbergen viele andere Punkte vom Gesicht. Und wenn dann, wie in Düsseldorf oder wie aktuell auch noch anderen Städten und Dörfern aus Deutschland gemeldet, solche Sichtungen kommen, dann müssen wir dem nachgehen und wir gehen dem auch nach, egal wie weit weg es ist. Das ist einfach der Punkt, ihr helft uns am besten, indem ihr Fotos macht, euch den Standort merkt und wenn ihr merkt, dass diese Person vielleicht sogar verwirrt ist, sprich wie im Fall von Düsseldorf mit einem Stein im Wasser tanzt, dann sollte man die Person nicht einfach links liegen lassen, sondern sollte vielleicht auch irgendwie Hilfe dazu holen. Manchmal ist es so, dass die Polizei dann sagt, okay, wir nehmen ihn mit, wir überprüfen das Ganze und wir können dann feststellen, da ist was oder da ist nichts. Manchmal ist es aber auch so, dass die Polizei sagt im Nachhinein, ja, wir können den nicht mitnehmen, der ist klar bei Verstand. Wir wissen aber, der heißt so und so. Aus datenschutztechnischen Gründen darf man es dann natürlich nicht sagen. Aber dann können die Polizisten uns auch glaubhaft versichern, es ist nicht unser Lars. Und wir haben in der Zeit, seitdem wir nach Lars suchen, nicht nur Obdachlose gefunden. Wir haben Leichen gefunden. Wir haben Leute gefunden, die selbstbestimmt frei leben, sage ich jetzt mal, im Wald leben, die auch seiner Beschreibung entsprachen. Weil dieses blond-braune von den Haaren mit diesem Bartwuchs, mit dem leichten rötlich-bräunlichen Stich, den er drin hat, das ist nun mal nicht selten. Und Lars hat halt eben keine Tätowierung auf dem Unterarm oder sonst wo, dass man ihn gleich erkennen könnte, die markant ist. Woran man ihn erkennen könnte, wären einfach nur 2, 3 Narben. Aber diese Narben sind bei bestimmten Kleidungsstücken und auch bei bestimmter Gesichtsbehaarung oder langen Haaren einfach nicht mehr erkennbar. Und dementsprechend müssen wir die Suche aufgrund unseres Profilbildes so allgemein halten, wie es in dem Fall wirklich nur geht, um auch die Reichweite in dem Fall so hoch zu haben, wie es nur geht.
Ja, vielen Dank, Rainer, für das Gespräch. Wir hoffen das Beste. Und ja, Dankeschön.
Bitte, gerne.
Why was exactly 500 euro transferred via Western Union? There was an arbitrary sum set by me. Lars did not ask for a sum. Otherwise, I would have been suspicious that there could be something else behind it. He trusted me to do the right thing. Do you believe that anyone entered the doctor's office and Lars ran away? I do not believe that anybody came in there, because the doctor had told Mrs. Mitrova on the phone about a visit to the toilet. It is curious where the doctor claims that somebody came in there, and this in 3 different versions. What did Lars leave behind? Adidas travel bag, backpack, ID, cell phone. In our research, it was found out that he had his passport, which unfortunately expired 4 weeks later, still with him in his wallet. Did Lars really take the theft seal? Is this information 100% known? It is 99% sure that Lars took 3 to 4 tablets, maybe 2 more in the evening, and then 1 tablet in the next morning. Why are you sure that the surveillance video has been manipulated or changed? I saw another video in the airport when I was there, from a different perspective. In it, Lars, after he reached the exit, oriented himself, grabbed his back pocket, walked to the left towards 2 police cars. 5 meters in front of the car he walked perpendicularly across the street towards the bus station. Where there is only 1 bus, behind it he disappears as a screen. The bus drives out backwards. He runs in the slipstream. As he goes forward, he runs towards a sand heap and disappears behind it. Then nothing more could be seen. The video, which was shown by Aktenzeichen XY, without being fixed, the police from Varna Airport got it sent to the police in Itzehoe after 7 weeks following the request. It was definitely a different video. What is true about the rumors that Lars has once disappeared before? There's nothing to it. Do you think Lars had a reason to disappear voluntarily? Do you think Lars had a reason to disappear voluntarily? Lars had a lot of trust in his parents, more of a friendly relationship, if one can say so within a family. That's why when I visited him in Wilhelmshaven to see his workplace in the power plant, which is not common, he told me about his future plans to settle down there and build or buy a house. They looked at the possible places in the area and he showed me around. Is it true that a man with the same name checked into a hotel nearby? Yes, the man was actually named Mittank with his family name, but was not related. What did Lars sound like when he called from Hotel Color? He thought about everything. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been possible to discuss all the steps, such as blocking the card and registering a ticket from International Health Insurance. He was more excited than usual, but also not speaking loudly. See the explanations about the hotel. Did you talk to the Hotel Color again? What do you think about the presentation of the owner on Google? The receptionist was spoken to shortly after Lars disappeared. The receptionist was a young man who works at the bank during the day and at the hotel as a part-time job. He copied the credit card and gave it back to Lars. On behalf of the police, Mr. Klein, detective inspector from Itzehoe, later stayed at the hotel as part of the TV show Aktenzeichen XY. Earlier, filming permits needed to be obtained in Bulgaria, and now the owner was on site and described Lars' check-in that evening because he was present. But he wasn't present. It was a young man, as I described him before. And with this, we are at the end of the video. The case of Lars Mittank is one of the most mysterious criminal cases out there. But don't forget that it's not only entertainment, but also a tragic event for Sandra Mittank and her family. And they're still looking for Lars, after 6 years. So if you're around Bulgaria or Europe or somewhere else, keep your eyes open for Lars. There is still hope. And if you see him, follow the words of the private detective. And one more time, if you want to help us, like, comment and share this video. With this we can maybe trick the algorithm and people who aren't subscribed to my channel will see this video. Thank you very much. And also, thank you for watching. Good night and see you.